Hello and welcome, everyone. Hi, my name is Julie. I am with B&N Press, and I am here today to discuss the topic of why it is crucial for indie authors to embrace a variety of formats, including ebooks, print, audiobooks, even foreign language, and maybe some other ones that we haven't even thought about. And we'll explore the benefits and challenges of this multi-format publishing to discover how this approach can help you as authors reach wider audiences, increase your revenue and your sales, and build more dynamic presence in the market. So with me today, I have the honor of speaking with the incredibly talented best-selling author and publisher, Tanya Anne Crosby. Thank you so much for being here. Tanya is the New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of more than 40 novels. Oof. And she has been featured in magazines such as People, Romantic Times, and Publishers Weekly. And her books have been translated into 8 languages. Her first novel was published in 1992 by Avon Books, where Tanya was hailed as one of Avon's fastest rising stars. And her 4th book was chosen to launch the company's Avon Romantic Treasure imprint. You are an award-winning author, a journalist, and the CEO, publisher of Oliver Huber Books, an author-centric grassroots small press. Welcome, Tanya, and thank you so much for joining me today to discuss all of this. I'm really excited.
Well, thank you for having me, but wow, you make me sound...
Well, what an illustrious career.
It's been a long one and very eventful. So yeah, I'm thankful for it.
Well, I'm so glad to have you. And so I kind of wanted to dive in and just hear from you about your journey, as a self-published author and how, well, actually as a traditionally published author, then a self-published author. And then now you've transitioned into running your own small indie press.
Yeah. So actually we'll skip the whole, how I got traditionally published.
Yeah.
Because, I think, there's lots of people who've kind of been down that route.
Mm-hmm.
And, but there was a point in my career where I felt very sort of, lots of promises not kept, just a little discouraged. And I kind of took my ball and went home for a little while. And, just sort of, learned other things. And actually a lot of those things actually ended up preparing me for what I'm doing now. For a short while, I was the editorial director at Dallas Child magazines, and it was like a stable of we actually published 5 different magazines out of that office. And I did a short stint, well, it wasn't really that short, 5 years at Match.com as their senior marketing writer. So I did that for a little while, and actually I was like really their writer for everything, like the site, their marketing emails, just literally.
Wow.
Yeah. So they didn't really have anyone else. So I was
spreading love wherever you go.
Yeah, just a one hat does all sort of, jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when I came back to publishing, I decided that, I didn't really want to go back to New York. There was some discussion with my agent, and I kind of did the whole, do I do this or do I don't? In the meantime, while I was actually trying to decide whether I should do that, a group of, I don't know if you're familiar with the Jewels of Historical Romance, but yes, they actually reached out to me and wanted me to join them. And, at first I was like, okay, I don't really know if I'm going to do this. I don't know, who wants to hear from Tanya? I've been out of the business for so long. And in fact, I ended up getting rights back to a few of my books at the time. It took me a lot longer to get the rest back, but I put a few of those up and literally they just took off. And at that point, I felt really empowered to do this my way. And in the meantime, when I first came back, I really thought that I had to sell my first couple of books to traditional publishing. And I did. And I went to Kensington. And ultimately, I just kind of felt like I just really liked, having control over what my career, my covers, my books, just the editing, everything, every aspect of it. So I just kind of, once again, took my ball and went home, but for different reasons. And I just kind of never looked back at that point. I started indie publishing, and that sort of just kind of to catapult me into the publisher. I stumbled into that by accident. During this time, I had a couple of friends who, well, one in particular who had some health issues, and her husband passed away, and I was already helping her with her books. So when I asked her, what can I do to help you? She said, well, you're already doing this anyway, but why don't you just take my books, treat them like they're yours, publish them, do whatever, then give me whatever money you think I and, at first I was like, okay, that, I've always heard you don't do business with friends, but I talked to my husband and he said, let's do it. It's Pam. So at that point I had to put like all the legal things in place to do, to publish somebody and, incorporate everything. And then once I did that, I started seeing, this person who I thought needed a little bit of love, and then that person. And then once I had like 10 people, they told 2 people, and literally we just grew by word of mouth. And we now have over 100 authors. And I'm really proud of our stable of authors. We just really, we have a really powerful house.
Yeah, I remember when you were telling me about this whole initiative, and it just sounds, and I know from speaking with you, it's just grown by like leaps and bounds, which is so incredible. The way you're able to help like so many of these indie authors. How has this role and the company like changed the way you see the industry? Because now you're on a different side, right? You're kind of both still a published author, but also now you are publishing other authors.
Right. Well, I've always said that what's important to me, first of all, I have such great respect for all the writers that we publish. And it's difficult for me to go into, this role as anything other than a partner. So I don't really view myself as a publisher. I'm humbled by the fact that they have put such trust into me to publish their books. And so, I'm always kind of trying to figure out how to do better. And so I don't really think of it. So I still look at it very much as an author, and I want OHB to be the publishing house that I wish I had. So that's kind of what I'm always thinking about in terms of, what we are offering our authors, how we approach everything that we do. And when I first started in this business back in, I think I first published my first book in like 2011, maybe 2012, possibly. I don't know. I can't remember now. But at the time, there were so few options available to us. And now there are so many options. We have not only do we have access to sell our books to audio publishers and to foreign publishers who are coming to us directly. And I don't mean necessarily OHB, although they do. But, just as authors, it used to be that we were not the ones who went to the distributors and who sold books. But now, we are that. That is who we are. And, and publishers are coming to us to help us exploit our books. So there's that, not only do we have access to that, but now we have access to, so many different types of print. Barnes & Noble offers both ebook and print options. Well, NOOK, Barnes & Noble Press. And so, there's that, there's Ingram's, there's, back in the day when I first started, doing translations. Actually, there was a point in my indie career where I was doing too much, and I was just wearing myself thin, and I was really not well for a little while. So, here's Jinx, he's back.
Hello.
And I wasn't well. And so I felt like and part of that was I felt like, I had to really sort of keep up with the Joneses and do more books and publish faster. And there were people who were publishing books every 6 weeks. It's just not who I am. I admire them. I think that's great. Good for them. But that is just not my publishing path. I can't really do that. So for me, it was more about, trying to figure out how to make the most out of each and every book, so how to, exploit every different platform, multi-platform I could possibly, explore for that particular book. And that included, foreign translations. It includes, audio, includes, hardcover. It includes, print, and of every aspect, and then of course ebook. But but when I first started doing the translations, there's really not a whole lot of options available to us. And so I did the research and found a couple of royalty share options, because I did the math, and obviously if you're paying $10,000 back in the day, that is how much they cost. It was every translation was about $10,000. I had, at the time, like 36 books.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, so the whole that bottom line was just too much. So what I actually did was I decided that, and if I'm jumping the gun a little bit too, you might want to ask me.
All right.
But I decided that, some of those translations I should do royalty share. And so I, did the research and found a couple of different platforms that offered royalty share. And by that, I mean that they offered the means where you could share the royalties with a translator, and they would handle the finance for it. So I never really at any point looked at any of those platforms as a means to meet translators. It was always, for me, a means to just manage the money, because you still, as an indie author, have to do all the research that's necessary to find your translator, vet your translator, make sure that, the copy that they turn in is good, and then publish it. So at the time there was not much, and now there's so much, and there are so many and there weren't many translators. Now I just really had to beat the bushes really, really hard with a big stick. And these days we just have so many options. There really are.
Yeah, I mean, so that's actually really interesting, this model of an idea that with translations to do like a royalty share as opposed to like a upfront cost, right? That's sort of what you're describing, is that there's no really upfront cost. You're just, the translator translates the books, and then you guys just share in whatever royalties come from sales, which I think is probably really helpful for indie authors who may not have $10,000 for all of those books. And so, there really have been an array of resources that have popped up. And then, we touched on, some of the things that you've done, with publishing in multi-formats, such as ebook and print and stuff. So why do you believe then that it's so important for indies to offer their books in all of these different formats?
Well, it all goes back to, working smarter and not harder, right? You just, if you created this amazing piece, amazing work, if you just publish it as an ebook and you throw it up there as an ebook and you don't do anything else, you are just leaving so much money on the table. You are, there are just so many other, not only is audio one of the fastest growing markets right now, and definitely something that authors should be looking at, but, print, all kinds of print. We at OHB, we were doing mass market, we were doing trade, we're doing hardcover. We're no longer doing the mass market version right now, but
for those authors who may not know, what's the difference between some of those?
So the mass market version is, the kind of old school. We were not doing mass printing, but the mass market versions were basically, they just mimic the old school
they're size. Smaller, right?
And what we kind of discovered is, while we were able to sort of keep costs down by doing them, and while, a lot of readers really loved them because they sort of were familiar, and, they just felt right in their hands, and, the bigger, it's easier to take that to the beach than it is to take, a bigger format. But what we found is that, bookstore owners don't really like to carry those because they don't want to put them on their shelves. They just are really tiny on their shelves. And so we have discontinued doing that for normal distribute. I mean, as a matter of course, we stopped doing that, and we're just doing trade at this point, trade and hardcover. But I just feel like, all of these, once you get audio up, once you get all your different print formats up, once you have an ebook, once you have all those up, any promotion that you do for one title, they all benefit. And then you've
Right.
got, I mean, not everybody reads the same way. For me personally now, I almost never read in print.
Mm.
Almost never. Not an ebook either. Especially with, as much as I have to read on a daily basis and I'm still writing, looking at the screen like that just does not appeal to me. And so I
Right.
almost exclusively these days read in audio. So, and I don't think I'm alone in that.
Yeah. What, absolutely. And myself, I am actually a convert from print to ebook, and slowly, I mean, I've dabbled in audio myself, and I really enjoy listening to certain types of audiobooks. But yeah, like for a very long time, I wasn't an ebook reader. I was always reading in print. And then of course I came to work for Barnes and Noble a number of years ago and got my first e-reader and never really looked back. I love the convenience of ebooks and the instantaneousness of them. But for indie authors, not readers, for indie authors, is there, a hierarchy that you would say for them to use in terms of like, what's the most important thing to get going? First, second, third, I know I can sort of speak to like the idea that ebooks are probably the easiest, right, to get up because there's no upfront cost as much as like a print book, which then you have to have like a certain type of cover design, and then audiobook in general. But like, would you say that's what you would recommend, authors kind of focus on?
Well, I wouldn't say focus on that because I think that, that is just the first step. I do think that is the primary one they need to get up. I mean, the ebook is critical because I think that's the way most people are reading these days. I mean, I still have, my daughter still wants the hardcover or and she still asks for print for Christmas, and I still get her those. But a lot of people are actually reading on e-readers now. And why not? I mean, you can actually take your instead of taking just one book on vacation, you literally have every single one of your books,
on your phone now too.
I know. So you're basically, you jump on a plane and, or you're at the doctor's office and, it's just with you everywhere you go. You can up and just start reading it. So, ebook very definitely. And but I also think, that it's not that difficult to just get the print up along with it. It's just a couple of added steps. And I think that those are just the, very basic is, going to do a print. If you're going to do an ebook, do a print. Hardcover may be a little more difficult for some people because you've got, the wraps are a little more
right.
But still, I mean, you guys make the hardcovers. We're doing special hardcovers for authors like Sherilyn Kenyon and my books and for but you guys make it super easy to go in there and make really kind of amazing. In fact, when we did the Pride Not Prejudice editions not too long ago, we did them exclusively at Barnes and Noble, and they were just beautiful. And we got so many compliments on them. But anyway, so it's not that difficult. Those tools that are, made a bit, maybe a little more difficult if you do it from scratch and upload to someplace like Ingram's or whatnot. You have to have the template and you have to kind of have an artist put it together. But you guys kind of make it really simple to just kind of go on there and put the pieces together. And anyway, so it's not that difficult to get the print up along with it. But then I think, the next one is audio. I think audio is super important these days. And again, there are so many different ways to approach that. These days we have access to not just, I mean, I know authors who are actually reading their own books and who are doing a fantastic job.
There are services, right, where you can basically record your own voice as the narrator.
Yes. I mean, I am not brave enough to do that. But I do have friends who are. I think Amy Jarecki is one of them. So, and I know that Glynis Campbell, who is, she is a voiceover actor, and I don't know if she's actually approached doing that for her own yet, but she should, because she's amazing. I think she keeps waiting that I don't know. That was some time ago. Maybe she's done it by now. But anyway, so not only do we have access to do the recording for these, there's also, again, there is with foreign translations, you can do royalty shares. You can do there are options for that, particularly through Find Away Voices. I think they offer some options like that, and I know that Amazon ACX does as well. So there are lots of options for that. But then also we have a direct, in many cases, we can have a direct communication with the audiobook companies, publishers themselves. I know that I don't know if they take non-agented material, but I assume they do. But because I know I hear from authors all the time that Tantor is reaching out about and Podium and Blackstone. So there are options to sort of have that personal relationship with them as well. So yeah, I think, did I answer that question?
You did. No. It got me thinking about with audiobooks and the hesitation I feel like with so many authors, especially ones who maybe are less established, is the cost, right? The cost of hiring narrators and the technicians to put together the book and things like that. And so, I know there are services out there to help with that. And obviously AI narration is a huge controversy and situation within the author community. And for B&N, we try and be agnostic at this point about how people want to serve up audiobooks as long as it's self-identified as AI. But I also know that like a lot of young, indie authors who are newer and don't have the financial means to hire narrators, like it could be a good, helpful tool.
It could be, but I'm not an AI hater. I'm not at all. I don't love when it's not ethically sourced, but
right.
But I'm not an AI hater. I do think that used properly, these things can actually only enhance, our teaching experience. But I would hope that before approaching something like AI, there are just, as I said with translations, there are ways to get around actually putting down that huge cost toward a translation. And you and I discussed right before we started recording that I did a teachable course a couple of years ago, and I actually don't support it anymore because I just don't have the time to support it anymore. But there is an hour and a half long video on there where I kind of talk, like maybe even ad nauseum, about the process of actually going through and getting your DIYing your own translations through through platforms like BabbleCube and TechTime and whatever. But now I'm no longer even using those platforms. Like at this point, we're set up at OHB to do lots of we work with Royalty Tracker, which is a system that allows us to sort of, I don't need any fancy bookkeeping. There's a system where we upload all of our raw data into this program, and it dispenses not dispenses, but it tells us what to pay whom and whatever. So now that I have all of that set up, and we've got the publishing company, and we're able to sort of dispense payments for so now we're actually doing royalty share. We're actually embarking on royalty share with trusted translators that I've worked with, because at this point I think I've done over 130 translations on my own. For my own books. I know, literally, I think I've done all of my books in nearly every language. Some of them I've paid direct. Some of them I did through BabbleCube. Some of them I did. And the great thing about doing it through somebody like BabbleCube actually is that they will handle the money for you. And you just have to worry about finding the right translator, vetting it, making sure that it is, quality. And then after 5 years, you get it and you can upload it to Barnes & Noble, right? So, because it's yours free and clear at that point. But these days, we're not really, it's not necessary for us to do that. We have everything in place to be able to do that royalty share in-house. And so we're doing that. We're actually, for our authors, we're doing some of them, we're paying for some direct, and we're doing some royalty share, just a little bit of everything. But on top of all that, now we have Kickstarter, and Kickstarter is an entirely different. We've got a new arm of OHB that basically deals primarily with Kickstarter, and it's being so sorry here, Jinx. It's being spearheaded by Jeff Wheeler, who is my partner in that, and he is. We're actually about to launch our very first campaign, and but this is another means of selling, not selling, but just offering special editions and things like that. Obviously, it's not something not somewhere you want to go for your everyday publications, but it is another option for specialty. The books, those books with foils in them and painted edges and that sort of thing.
Right.
So there's so much available out there for authors, and so it definitely behooves us to be exploiting every platform, every multi-platform we possibly can.
Absolutely. Briefly, you had mentioned, not briefly, you've mentioned your foreign translations like a lot because it's such an important part of the business, I think. What kind of like trends and translations in foreign language are you seeing? Are there certain ones that authors should focus on, like certain languages that are more popular, or like certain niches, like in romance specifically, or or mystery and thriller, like things like that? Like, just speak a little bit more to like where foreign language is right now.
Right. So before I tell you that, I want to tell you why I've actually brought those up so much, because back I mentioned that there was a time when I was not feeling very well, and I just was working too much, and I had a serious, I was like, some sort of immune disorder that it has corrected itself. I changed my diet.
Very happy to hear that.
I'm good, but at the time I was actually not able to write as much, and I was really kind of worried, and so about staying relevant and keeping revenue up. But honestly, just switching gears a little bit, writing slower, and switching gears to exploiting one book in 6 different languages really sort of increased my my revenue that year. That was the year I published less than ever, and well, I can't say that because I actually was publishing 6 versions of every book, but I published fewer new books than ever, and I earned more than I ever did. So I do feel like it's really important to exploit all these different avenues, but to answer your question specifically, German is hands down the most profitable genre. I don't know that I can say that it is that across the board, because I saw I happen to write in many different genres. I write women's fiction, and I write historical romance, fantasy, literally you name it. I've done romantic suspense. I've done everything, but I did find that my historical romance sold way better than, for example, my women's fiction in Germany. So it's not a one size fits all. I think it's important to sort of test the waters before you just kind of go all in. But again, this is where royalty share actually really kind of comes in handy, because you're splitting, and I would definitely be generous with your translator, because they're taking all the risk up front. But if you're sharing 50% of your revenue for the first 5 years, and then afterwards you own the translation, you need to actually be sure that not just you, but your translator is actually going to walk away and it's going to be worth it for them. So
I mean, when you think about how many different languages there are, right? You have to have translations for German, French, Spanish, Portuguese.
Yes.
Any other out there ones that were surprising to you, or you were like, wow, I didn't realize I was going to sell so much in Korean or something?
No, the other way around. It's just I actually I I have lots of Spanish cousins. I was born in Spain. My mother's Spanish, and I remember. So sorry. I'm apologizing ahead of time to my Spanish cousins, but because I'm telling on them. But basically, like they wouldn't like they're they were pirating even my books, So I just I did not find, and maybe it's different for every author and every but I personally did not find that, even though I had such a huge connection to the Spanish market, that that is almost the least profitable. The least profitable was Dutch. Dutch was that is like I tried one series in that, and I walked away because I just couldn't. It didn't. I didn't feel comfortable. I actually ended up having to pay the translator a little, because I just felt like, even though it was a royalty share through BabbleCube, I just felt terrible because it just didn't pan out.
Oh my goodness. So then what do you recommend authors do in order to make sure? So German clearly is like the one that authors should try and get their translations for. And I would say probably French too.
Yes. Second.
And maybe just start there for authors.
Italian.
And Italian. Oh, of course. The other Romance language.
Yep. So, but those three I found were extremely profitable for me. By far, German was the most. After the first year that during the entire first year that I published, actually for the first 2 years, I think it was 60% of my income.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sadly, I have to caveat this entire conversation and say that Barnes & Noble does not sell internationally. So, while we do have our ebook program and our print program, and we sell those within the United States, we do not sell international content. So as authors, you'll have to use other resources to distribute your books internationally. But we do offer, foreign languages on bn.com. There's plenty of people in the United States who are, read, speak, talk different languages. So we definitely have that availability as well. But I think in terms of like maximizing your sales, you would probably want to go with an expanded distribution somewhere else for international.
But again, here, with my, out of the entire world, my Spanish translations did better in the US than it did anywhere else.
There you go.
Right. So definitely do not forget to upload to a US. And I do actually always recommend uploading direct to, I know a lot of people, this is not to diss, the aggregator sites, because I love them. And I use them for many, many things, but I absolutely recommend 100% uploading your book to Barnes & Noble direct.
Thank you. I obviously we want people to do that as well. And, but we work closely with some of the aggregators, and I think they have their purpose for certain elements, especially like expanded distribution or things like that. But yeah, I think being able to retain, that maximum royalty is always really nice. And so by going direct, you get to do that. Plus, there's advantages obviously with promotional materials and things like that. Speaking of platforms, are there any other platforms or tools you kind of cited a few of them in foreign language and things like that and audio, but is there anything else you can think of that would help indie authors, looking to diversify their book formats?
So, I have absolutely nothing to do with them. I'm not getting a kickback here, but absolutely. I think that they should be using Vellum. Vellum is an amazing tool. And for anyone who just doesn't really, you're literally, it's so easy to format. And then it kicks out, the different sizes and versions that you need for every single, so you don't have to worry about, you don't have to even think about whether, this index is going to work on Barnes & Noble, or whether, you have to hire somebody to do the interior for hardcover, or for, a different print size, mass market versus trade, whatever. You actually, with the touch of with just like a little click here and there, you can actually just spit it all out at once. And then there's no excuse not to actually take advantage of not doing literally, every format.
Right.
Which I absolutely recommend for every single book. I just think that.
Also, it ensures like quality control, right? When you're using a service like Vellum, even though again there's like upfront costs, you definitely will get that professional quality across your different, editions of your book, to keep it consistent and professional looking. Similar with audiobooks, I think, you want to make sure you retain that quality and professionalism. And there are certainly services out there to help with that. I'm not sure if Findaway Voices does production anymore of audiobooks, if I'm correct, but
I think it seems like they may have stopped doing that.
yeah.
There are definitely other options.
Yeah, I think one of them that we've been hearing rumblings about is Authors Republic.
Yes.
And they distribute to Barnes and Noble. And then I know, like, again, not to like go too much into synthesized AI narration, but doesn't Google Play also allow you to do AI narration, and then you can use your audiobook wherever?
Yes, and Amazon does too. Again, I have not really, I shy away from that just because I feel like,
right.
And there are so many other options. I mean, if you can't find, a willing narrator, for example, to narrate your title, and you've exhausted all,
right.
Options, then I think that's something you should look at. But I do think there are so many other ways of sort of right. negotiating a contract so that it's a win-win for everybody. And at OHB, we actually do have a sub-rights agent who does try to sell our audio first, because, I think that it's important. So we hold back it, from doing audio. And so I guess I should also say this. You asked me earlier, how, the market has influenced how I approach it as a publisher. And one of the things that, OHB is, I'm so committed to people actually putting out, being able to exploit every possible right they possibly can. OHB has a very generous policy when it comes to, if we have tried to sell your audio, for example, we've done everything we can, or for foreign translations, if we've tried that and we have failed, I absolutely encourage our authors to come to us and say, hey, I want to DIY this. I want to actually engage my own agent to do this, whatever. It doesn't, so we try to be extremely generous when it comes to, because if we're not, that's one of the things I think in this day and age, there is just no excuse for every author not to be able to actually exploit rights. No publisher should be sitting on rights that they're not. I personally don't feel they should be.
I think that's a great point, and really is important, I think, for authors to think about, as they're, whether you're starting this journey, in the indie world, or you're already kind of more well established. So this brings me to my next question about like trends or other formats that, maybe authors should consider. And some of them, we talked a lot about, obviously, print and ebook and audiobooks and foreign language, and all of those different variations. And then, are there anything else that you're seeing that's sort of, is it something like serialization? Or I know like we do a lot of bundles, which bundles and anthologies would be considered its own type of format. And then we talked about limited or special releases. I don't know, multimedia. Is there anything else, even any of those that like you're seeing?
So all of the above. Like we're actually now looking at doing a serialization for a brand new world for Sherilyn Kenyon. So
exciting.
So so we I won't say anything more about that, but just because it's just too it's just in process. But absolutely, I think that literally everything that is available to us should be explored.
Right.
But I guess there is one caveat that I have that I really feel like is so important to actually sort of put out here. We are these days in a position where we are, the interfacing with publishers and startups and whatever. And so, these days there's a lot of new programs that are, where they're reaching out to authors, and it might be serialization for, I don't know. I'm not going to highlight any particular company, but if somebody reaches out to you for any reason, contracts are one of the things that I have learned is that contracts are very tricky. And so authors should absolutely always consult and you can do it for just a one-off fee. They don't have to get, in the old days, agents would get 20% of your income just because they looked at your contract. And, and these days, agents are doing a lot more than that. And you don't need to pay an agent 20% to actually do, to look at a contract. You can hire an attorney to look at it. And I absolutely recommend that, because there are so many different things that could arise and rights grabs that could affect print versions or, even your ebook versions if you sign the contracts without consulting an attorney. So I think it's really important to do that.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, that's a really important caveat, especially as authors branch out to use all these different companies, to make sure you're protected, legally. And then also like scams, like never give money up front to a company, saying they'll do all these things for you, without due diligence or legal representation. So I think that's actually an incredibly important tip for any indie author watching this, is to always, be wary of those kind of scams, to protect yourself legally when you're going into contract negotiations, whether that's, with, for your ebooks, your foreign rights, or whatever it is. Great point.
So, the thing is, there are more options available to us now than ever before, but with that also comes added responsibility. It used to be that, the gatekeepers, quote unquote, the gatekeepers, who published our books, they took those, say what you usually took on the responsibility of making sure that that your editors were quality, that that you were taken care of, and that if there were any other formats that were being exploited, that they were actually fell under their own. So that's so you're not being taken care of that way anymore. So when you are engaging literally anyone, from translators, always have a contract in place. And and if you are receiving a contract, always make sure that that contract is reviewed by an attorney, because the responsibility falls in your lap now. You're the one that has to vet the quality of the translation or the audio. You're the one that has to actually make sure that that you don't sign a contract that says that you just gave away your ebook rights and now you no longer have the rights to them, and this other company does, and they can do whatever they want with it, and it's no longer yours. You have to make sure that you're covered, and that responsibility no longer falls, it falls in your lap. So,
yeah, no, that's a really great point, and I think it's a perfect sort of almost end note to this whole entire discussion, because it really is to be honest, actually really one of the most important things we probably will mention today when dealing with all of this different formatting that you can do, publishing in different spaces. We've talked a lot about the positive the positive things that come from multi-format publishing, which is obviously things like increased discoverability and sales. Rising tide lifts all boats, but that does come with challenges. Obviously it comes with certain budgets that you have to put in place in order to get these different formats. And then now obviously on the legal side too, that's another thing to consider. But I think overall we've, come to the conclusion that it is still really beneficial for indie authors to use and exercise all of these areas of the industry to your benefit. It will only benefit you as an author. So I just want to leave that here and ask if there's anything else that you can think of that authors should consider any tips for expanding their business when thinking about multi-format publishing?
So one of the things that you might consider is, so many of us are like daunted by, and first of all, none of it has to be difficult. It just doesn't,
Right.
if you tell yourself you can do it, you just do the homework and you uncover all your options and you move forward. And
Right.
it is not scary. It just is scary if you let it be scary. It's not scary. You do need to know the pitfalls and you need to kind of, protect yourself against them. But, just explore all the avenues and, it doesn't have to be like this giant investment all at once. One of the things you can do is that you can, do audio, one audio, do it as, direct, a direct, you pay them direct, or you do it as royalty share, either one, and let that pay for itself. And then you move on to the next, and then and then you've got 2 or 3 up, and that can maybe help you pay for 3 more. So it just doesn't have to be done in a way that is overwhelming or scary. You just do it. You just take one step, and you go to the next step, and the next, and you just keep doing what you have to do, and then soon enough, you just have 130 something translations up, and it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of indie publishing. You take your time the way you can manage it, so you obviously don't get burnout. You do what you want to. You have the control over where you want to put your effort and your time. And I think that's a great tip to just like it's okay to take your time. There is
There's and only one more thing I want to say, and that is I feel like for so long it was print, and now that ebook is king or queen or whatever you want to call it, I think people forget that ebook, that print is still on the table and still important, and it's still, you still want to be able to reach the libraries, and you want to be able to reach all of the book clubs, all of these places that we are not going to reach with just the ebook. So I think it's just so critical to make sure that you just cover those basics. If you're going to put an ebook up, put a print up. It's very easy.
Yeah. And younger readers, their book talk, that's where all those like print editions are showing up. No one's holding up NOOK in their TikToks.
No, absolutely not. And you can't sign you can't sign.
Yeah.
So
book signings.
Yes, absolutely. So
yeah, that's a great way to like increasing, your readership and your newsletters, going out there and talking with people and having books available for, sign and giveaway and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, print is still really important. It's important to Barnes and Noble. So, well, Tanya, thank you so much for joining me today and this discussion. I really feel like we talked so much about all kinds of stuff. And I really feel like a lot of this is going to be super impactful for the authors watching. So thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's always lovely to talk to you.
I know. All right. Well, we will sign off.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Have